seems to go live. Well, that's what I see on the screen.
Okay, thank you very much to Abdulrahman Siksek from Palo Alto Networks. I hope he gave you a little bit of an idea of some of the security changes you're looking at. You know, I just talked to the backend team taking care of the presentation platform here, and they told me that if we had been on a multi-cloud environment, we would have been doing so much better with this hiccup that we had. I think we're about 20 minutes behind. I do apologize for the disruption. You know, multi-cloud and actually cloud itself is very challenging when it comes to the networking side, and the things that good old networking engineers, including myself, were expecting as normal features in an environment that can sometimes be challenging to deal with in a cloud environment and achieve in a cloud environment. Specifically, when you're then looking at multi-cloud, you might have different capabilities in each and every one of these cloud environments. Aviatrix is one of the partners that we deal with in the cloud space, and they have a very, very interesting solution of how to create an abstraction layer to all of these multi-cloud capabilities, so that you really get one cloud, no matter if it's powered by a multi-cloud environment underneath. With me to talk about that, I have a good old friend and colleague, Ides. We used to work together in the past, and I'm really happy to be working with you again. And take it away.
All right. Thank you very much for the introduction, Nikolai. So, yeah, it's great to be back on this forum over here. So you should all have a visual of my screen. I'll just make it full screen. And I believe the title of the SSF event, the Spotlight Forum, is really on top of that one, Ready, Steady, Cloud. And also what, of course, is important in that aspect over here is that everybody's on a different journey. During the introduction, also during the opening speech, but also the speech of the prison person, it was very clear that everybody is embracing the cloud in a different way, and also will be using it in a very different way going forward. Some of the organizations will stay with a hybrid environment, and there will also be, of course, a ratio between on-prem type of applications, maybe very super secret type of applications, but also, of course, the move to the cloud. The slide that was just shown a couple of minutes ago, where Gartner mentioned that 81% of all the companies will be using 2 clouds at least, couldn't be more real as we see that one today. And during the intro of Nikolai, it was clear that the networking capabilities of the public clouds sometimes are a little bit behind of what you expect out of an on-prem environment that has already been developed over the last 25 years, so to say. So what we see over here at Aviatrix is that there is a desperate need to simplify the networking capability in a single cloud environment, but also a multi-cloud environment, and an aspect which is always important, whether we talk about networking, whether we talk about access technology or security, is to give you the visibility, and out of that visibility, you will gain control. And that's one of the utmost aspects when it comes to delivering any type of application. As you all know, some of them do know Aviatrix, some of you don't know Aviatrix yet. It's about the networking combination with security that Aviatrix is focusing on. From my side, a very warm welcome to this event, also to the Help AG organizational team. Many thanks for having us on your virtual platform today. Not to have some bragging rights over here, but what is important is that moving to the cloud, you're not the first one, you're not the only one. And the logos that you see over here is one of our many hundreds of customers that we have worldwide, but it's not about the sheer number of customers that we actually service today, but it's more about the different verticals. What is important to know is that any type of company that goes into the cloud, whether they're just a greenfield environment or maybe already since many years considered as a brownfield environment over here, any type of vertical that you see over here basically had their very specific reason why they selected Aviatrix to make their cloud a success. Because as you saw that also within the different intro slides, it's about agility, it's about a financial benefit that you can get out of these type of hyperscalers and public type of cloud. And every logo that you see over here has its own little story on why they selected Aviatrix. One of the challenges that you see, and this slide might be appropriate over here, is that when you go into the public cloud itself, and again, Aviatrix is more focusing out of a network and a security point of view, is that you have typically multiple phases that you have to go through. We also saw in a couple of different slides that it's of course do-it-yourself environments, but also a lot of organizations, they're pretty new to the cloud. And in order to keep the agility, you have to go through the building phase fairly quickly because you want to access your application in the fastest possible way, but also the most secure way. Then, of course, the longest day, which is typically day 2, it's all about operating that type of cloud. And of course, the building is also an ongoing journey because one of the reasons that you selected the cloud is that you can also scale. You can scale up, you can scale down, depending on the applications, depending on the season, depending on the promotions that you do within your organization. And then, of course, there is the ever-growing part when it comes to the cloud. But also strategic decisions will be made a long time, where, for example, you will be expanding from maybe 2 clouds into 3 clouds. And it's very clear for the GCC region that all the different large cloud providers will be setting foot between now. Some of them, of course, are already present, but across all the different countries within the GCC. So what we have seen specifically within the build phase is that you have to embrace the cloud. And most of the cloud providers, whether you take an Amazon and Azure, but also a Google Cloud, for example, in that sense, it's rather type of building blocks that you have, a sort of toolkit that you have. Think about an IKEA box that you get or that you bring at home, and then it's up to you to put it all together, and hopefully the result will hold. And that's exactly, as Nikolai described during the introduction, where Aviatrix comes around. You have been spoiled over the many years to define your own type of data center when it comes to networking, when it comes to troubleshooting tools, whether it comes to visibility, whether it's to add security, but you always did that from a very specific blueprint. Let's call it an architecture. And typically you had a network architecture, and on top of that one, you had a security architecture. And typically they work together, and whatever you did, whenever you launched a new application, whenever you had a new access technology, be it SSL VPN, work from home, whether it's your brand new SD-WAN environment or any type of other wide area network or third-party suppliers, you always had a blueprint ready on how these type of connections should be established on your on-prem network. Now, fast forward within the cloud, and the goal, of course, is to build your new type of data center within the cloud environment. But of course, you would like to bring your expertise that you had and also the unique access to all the components within your on-prem network into the cloud. And that's exactly where the challenge is. From the previous slide, you saw that typically when we work with native networking components within a public cloud provider, whether it's AWS or Azure, you will see that all these type of functions are different from each other. And you will have to use multiple functions that you have available within the basic cloud networking kit to actually build the result that you expect. And that's exactly where the challenge comes around. Now, if you are embracing a second cloud, a third cloud, you will see that you don't only have to become an expert in each and every cloud on that one, but you also will have to realize and create, for example, a connectivity across all the different clouds. And now the question is, how do I create that single uniformity across all these different clouds? Because you cannot really predict what the future will bring in terms of multiple clouds. But one thing is for sure, if you're moving more and more of your applications from the on-prem environment or a hosted environment into your new data center on the public cloud, your environment will be growing. And of course, the number of challenges that you will be facing will be growing. And that's exactly where Aviatrix comes around, of creating that uniform layer over here across any of the native networking constructs to give you that simple view on everything which is related to networking and security. Whether it's access, whether it's integrating your favorite Palo Alto Networks firewall, for example, that's where Aviatrix will help to build a scalable and a visible architecture within those new type of cloud providers. Briefly on this one, this is the reality that we see talking to our customers, prospects, is that there is a complexity, of course, and that complexity brings a skills gap. The complexity gets bigger, of course, in order that you have more applications, more VNets, more VPCs, then of course the ever demand when it comes to audit, governance, implementation of security, but also following up on a scalable security platform. That's exactly where the complexity goes sky high. And of course, the demand for extra skills comes around. And that's of course handy to have Help AG as our partner within that journey into the cloud. One of the elements that we hear the most is about visibility. It always comes around, if you cannot really see it, you cannot really detect it, what are you going to do about that one? How can you quickly, for example, figure out what goes on exactly? We've witnessed it at the start of this event, that suddenly the live stream went away. Well, how do you troubleshoot that very quickly? If you don't really have the tools around you, how can you quickly, for example, figure out what it is? And once you figured out what it is, what can you do about that one? And that's where, again, where we see the lack in some of the cloud providers is that there is simply no visibility to help you out because it's all being done as a black box principle. Many other elements are in there with limited troubleshooting capabilities. You don't have packet capture. It's very difficult to do end-to-end connectivity and so on. So that's really the challenge that we see within these environments. So Aviatrix is truly focused on bringing you that multi-cloud experience. But typically you start off within a single cloud over here, and then some of the use cases that we have, and I believe that was also a question in the forum just a few minutes ago, is how do I bring my data in an encrypted or secure way into the cloud? Of course, there might be different type of solutions over here, but Aviatrix addresses this as one of the primary solutions on how you bring your on-prem data center and, of course, maintain the connectivity in a high-speed encrypted capability. Because as you know, you cannot bring your hardware along within the AWS cloud or any other type of cloud, but you can connect to it through one of your favorite service providers. And exactly what Aviatrix is doing over here, it's building that high-speed controller capability straight into the VPC. Specifically for the financials, this is an utmost important use case because it's a combination of speed, it's a combination of security, and it's specifically a combination of keeping the keys of the security castle within your own hands instead of trusting, for example, a service provider, whether they have the security right. But then you can extend that also across regions. How do you propagate, for example, new applications that you have built across the different VPCs? That's where we work in the region. And while we're at it, you also need to have the InterCloud type of capabilities, but also in a secure way. So all those lines that you see across all these different type of clouds are high-speed encrypted type of links. What is important to know is that by using Terraform Cloud and so on, we have a repeatable design. But one of the most important parts, I believe, for somebody starting the journey or is seeing some challenges within that area is that the Aviatrix controller that you see over here is managing all those individual Aviatrix gateways, giving you that uniform look and feel in terms of use cases and capacity. And then we can extend that one with, for example, multi-cloud network segmentation. You have been using VLANs, you have been using VXLAN to increase the security, but also, of course, to keep control between different segments within your network. It is the same when you go into the cloud, is that you have a preferred way on how you can, for example, segment the different type of networks within a single cloud, but also across multiple clouds. The other one, a very important aspect, is what we call the service chaining. And we specifically call that service chaining or insertion because maybe you start off 2020 with the state of art when it comes to securing by using Palo Alto networks, for example, but it might also be possible that you're looking into, for example, an F5 web application firewall, or for example, as one of the parts will be discussed later on, will be the shade security, which is more oriented to web applications being secured. So you will see a combination of different security elements that you require to protect your north-south connection, but also your east-west type of connections. And that's exactly the architecture that also Aviatrix offers, to have that abstraction of the security when you inject it into your networking environment in the cloud. Visibility, very important, but I will spend a couple of minutes on this one during a live demo. And of course, the secure cloud access is a very important part. Maybe if you have been into the cloud since a while, maybe your next challenge will be to keep up the speed in an encrypted way, but also for branch offices, retails that have hundreds of offices will see a benefit of using the direct Aviatrix touch within the public cloud, but also keeping in mind the segmentation based on profiles that you get when accessing that cloud. An important, but a last element is all about secure ingress and egress. So we have, of course, all the data that gets into the cloud environment that can be protected by, for example, our service insertion chaining, by working with our partners, but also individual machines over here, they need to have access to the internet. And we provided it with a very simple egress SPDN type of filtering capability that will work across whitelist, blacklist of FQDNs provided in a central way, distributed across any type of VNet, across any type of cloud. So we still have a couple of minutes left over here, and I would like to conclude this slide over here, that we are also, of course, cloud aware. So that means that we work directly with all the different native networking constructs that you have within the several clouds. So for example, within an AWS environment, we can work hand in hand with the existing transit gateway, for example, but also out of the controller, we can orchestrate these cloud native type of tools. So depending where you are, where you're coming from, or where you want to go to, there is always a multi-step approach based on your own timeline to embrace the Aviatrix technology and to bring along anything that you configured already and to make it part of the overall Aviatrix controller. So let me switch to my web browser over here. And Aviatrix CoPilot, and you saw that also on the slide, is bringing you that visibility. It's bringing you the troubleshooting capabilities. And we still have a few minutes left, so it will not be enough to drill down in all the capabilities over here. But CoPilot is extracting all the statistical information of all the flows that goes through the Aviatrix gateways, whatever type of use case you make it do. So whether it's egress FQDN, whether it's FireNet firewall architecture, whether it's high-speed 10 gig, 20 gig of IPsec connectivity, or even on the slowest, let's say 10 megabits per second branch office connection, the result will always be the same of what you see on that. So we have a couple of elements over here, but the two most important ones is, first of all, creating a dynamic topology. You saw already the importance of having asset management, but this is more focused on the networking part, because of course, this type of CoPilot is your fastest way to innocence. What I have over here within my topology view is a real life environment. And you also see that it does even discoveries of elements that you have in your network, which are simply not connected. This might be DevOps, this might be QA, this could be your systems engineering company over here, just building some loose components. But if we scroll and we zoom in into these environments, you start to see your business network over here. And of course, this can be clustered on different levels, but you see exactly all the different elements that constitutes your network across different clouds or within a single cloud. You see the Azure environment over here, you see the AWS environment over here. And of course, by clicking on these clusters, you can have better overview of what you have. An important part is that we give you all the different latencies, and just out of, for example, any type of cluster that you see over here, you can also get into some of the diagnostics. So immediately from the dynamic buildup, you have everything at your fingertips to launch, for example, a ping, a trace route, to do a very quick connectivity test. But you also see at the same time the routes which all the different connections will take to go to a destination. There is only one level of truth over here, which is based on FlowIQ. And FlowIQ is the logical extension of NetFlow v9, which we use over here, but now we split it up in different type of environments. We give you all the information from the IP level up into the TCP or into layer 4 environment over here, in combination with trending. So it gives you certain trends on how your network is performing over here, and what will happen if you, for example, do not scale up or scale wider when it comes to requirement of resources, but also geolocation, also very important when it comes to security, but also individual flows. So at the same time, it can also be your audit, your type of governance system, which is provided over here. And you have over here the top talkers talking to any type of destination. So it truly gives you all the visibility that you require within your network. The last one, but not the least important one, and again, this is just live as we speak over here, where I can select a source and a destination. And this is, of course, giving you all the different levels of visibility within your network. And this is truly what you're looking for if you're in networking, if you're in security, on how to get a true end-to-end visibility about the flows, but also taking into account your on-prem environment, because of course, all these type of elements are important to have that full end-to-end visibility. Takes a few seconds just to generate this type of mix. But you know what I just did a few seconds ago is that I took a source talking to a destination. And of course, within that complex cloud environment, I don't really have a view what type of routes will be taken. And this is the great part about what Aviatrix is doing, is that it will show you all the connections, all the routes that it takes, but it will also show you at the same time the latency endured during that connectivity. So this is truly your fastest way to innocence, as we call, speaking about security and networking, because it gives you all that information. And of course, there is so much info that we provide because we are that centralized piece, having a total view across any type of region, any type of cloud. So I'll stop the sharing over here. I apologize for being a few minutes over time, but I hope it was useful.
Thank you very, very much, Ides. Definitely, it was very useful. You're a bold man to start a demo of this. When we do demos of Aviatrix, it typically leads off to another set of questions about, can it do this, can it do that? And luckily the question, the answer is very often yes. And it's really driven by this requirement that customers have about getting visibility and security into the multi-cloud environments. So thank you very much for that, Ides. Just a little bit about what's going to happen now. We have a networking break, which is basically as virtual as it gets. So if you go to the platform and go into the Lounge tab, then you'll see the different tables that you can join. Maybe you'll find one of your account managers from Help AG or a colleague from the industry that you can join at a lounge table. I can't provide you coffee. You have to make that yourself. What I do provide you is the ability of taking part in a lucky draw. We are very, very connected in these times. I think all of us are spending way too much time on Teams and these things. And sometimes we have to switch off. Not just yet, only when the event is over today. But what I would like to trade is the ability to participate in our lucky draw for your feedback about this event. So if you go to the lounge area as well, you'll see in the banner in the top, you can see that you can participate in our feedback for the event. And here we are drawing a nice staycation for 2 people, so that you can be allowed to switch off a little bit as well. But with that, let's get out to the lounge and let's spend some time together virtually, and looking forward to chatting with you there. Thank you.